When worlds collide, you can run,
but no can hide.
When worlds collide, you'll laugh so hard, you'll swear you died. When worlds collide, hold my hand, I'll be your guide. When worlds collide, buckle up for the sweetest ride, and prepare to have your mind blown wide.
Hello everyone, Dr. Stone is over. I guess we should probably talk about it. This was a series I made a video on about 2.5 years ago when I first caught up to it, and I fucking loved it. I was really on the Dr. Stone high for a while, but it has been quite a long time since then. And since then, over 100 new chapters have come out. It all wrapped up just the other day. So let's take a look at the full thing and see how it holds up. So get excited, because I'm 10 billion% sure that we are going to have a bad time. Dr. Stone is a science fiction series that was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump from 2017 to 2022. It actually took exactly 5 years. That's kind of interesting. It was written by Riichiro Inagaki and drawn by Boichi. The story follows Senku Ishigami, a high school boy and a big ol' nerd. But he's much more than just your normal science nerd. He's kind of a genius, like Jimmy Neutron level. He's actually insane. This kid has fucking contacts in NASA. He's like building rockets and shit in his spare time. He's a smart cookie and was likely shoved into many lockers. His friend Taiju is almost the complete opposite of him, because, he's a dumb brute. And the series actually starts with Taiju going to confess his love to a girl he's had a crush on for quite a while. But then the apocalypse happens. Yeah, that kind of stinks. Yeah, all of a sudden, the entire world is petrified. Everyone, all 7 point whatever billion people on the planet are turned into stone statues. Taiju then wakes up 3,700 years later to a very different world. A world littered with all of these petrified statues, as well as completely overtaken by nature. Vegetation is everywhere, animals are roaming free. Most signs that humans used to be the dominant force on the planet are wiped away. Taiju also discovers Senku, who became unpetrified several months ago and has been living on his own using his science powers to survive. And now with the arrival of Taiju, Senku has a strong guy, someone who can do all the physical labor that he is not able to. It also leads them to discover a mysterious fluid that seems to have caused the reversal of their petrification. They realize they can use this fluid to revive anyone they want, leaving them to dub this mysterious fluid Dr. Stone.
Buckle up for the sweetest ride.
But it's in limited quantities, so they want to be very careful with how they first use it. And they decide that their first revivee shall be Tsukasa, someone who has quite a reputation, being a huge gorilla man, one of the strongest high school fighters around, someone who can definitely help out with their physical labor that they need to, survive more efficiently in this world, but also someone to fight off some lions, because there's a lot of dangers in this world, and we need someone who can punch a lion in the face. So the three of them join up. They're a team now. They're taking on this world together. They've been sent all the way back thousands of years into the Stone Age. Things are going well, but the problem comes when they decide what is going to happen next. Senku wants to heal the world. He wants to study this revival fluid, figure it out, make more of it, and revive everyone on the earth so the world can get back to the way it used to be. This will require a lot of work and a lot of science. Tsukasa, however, does not see eye to eye with Senku. In fact, he thinks that this whole apocalypse thing was a way for humanity to start over and giving them an opportunity to only revive the strong, the people who deserve to be revived. He also doesn't believe in science. He's like, man, fuck that nerdy shit. We're just gonna beat you up. So this causes a schism in their group, and it leaves Senku going off on his own, where he makes a most interesting discovery. A village full of humans, a primitive village. How does this village exist when every human on the planet was turned to stone? They don't know anything about this. Like I said, they're primitive, and they think Senku is some kind of weird sorcerer guy. So now Senku needs to figure out if he can trust these people, and more importantly, if they can help him pursue his endeavors in science. Not only to figure out how to stop Tsukasa, who is amassing an army with the revival fluid he was able to obtain, and to also figure out the mystery of this petrification. Who or what caused it in the first place, and can it happen again? And from there, we are thrown into, I have to say, quite a unique journey. There's nothing I've really read quite like Dr. Stone before. This is a series where they are constantly setting new goals, new science, new invention type goals we have to make. Okay, we got to make this certain thing. We're going to need all these different ingredients. This is where they're located. These are all the people we need to help. They make a plan and then they execute it. They're gathering materials. They are creating stuff. We are constantly getting payoffs to the projects that they set up. And once they create something new, they can use it to create something new yet again. It's this really satisfying loop comparable to some video games, where they're constantly introducing new goals and constantly paying them off. And I have to say, it is really interesting stuff. I mean, seeing how a lot of mundane things necessary for survival are made, I was never like super familiar with the inner workings of all of these things, but it's really, really interesting to see. And this is accurate stuff, like they consulted scientists while writing, and seeing them just make everything is really, really cool. And of course, as Senku works together with these village people, he starts to befriend them. They all start to, become chummy with each other. Before Senku showed up, Chrome was sort of the village scientist. He was really into that stuff, so Senku sort of takes him on as an apprentice, and people are generally just super amazed by the stuff he can do, even if it's, like, to us, super mundane and trivial. It's just such an interesting, fascinating concept, right? Like, here you're thrown back into the Stone Ages, but thanks to Senku, you have all the knowledge of modern humanity. So they'll take shortcuts, they'll do crazy inventions that they never would have thought about in the Stone Age. And it's really cool seeing how they make sometimes more modern equipment with the limited resources they have. And this makes up the main core of what the series is, but what ties it all together and keeps it interesting is the overarching story and conflicts going on, mostly with Tsukasa, who is doing his own thing, and it becomes kind of a race against time. They know that Tsukasa is going to start making moves, and they don't stand a chance against him unless they advance their science to a level where they can. And then you of course also have the central mystery of where this petrification even came from. And yeah, all of these elements just make for a really entertaining time. Yeah, there's just something really fun and special about this whole package, and yeah, I had a good time. So there have been multiple times in the past where I'm doing a review, I'm heaping on loads of praise, and then I throw a curveball your way, how, oh, this is only the first half of the series. God damn it. So Dr. Stone shifts a little less than halfway through, and becomes more of an adventure story. And it makes sense narratively. It makes sense why they would go off on journeys to, so they can find more things to advance their science even more, and they have much, much bigger, larger scale projects in mind, and that's all well and good. And I was really excited for this new chapter of the story. However, it is constantly in the shadow of the Stone Wars. That's the whole conflict with Tsukasa's arc, whatever. Because the conflicts that they introduce never come close to living up to that. And because of this, I ended up becoming a lot less invested in the story. While the stakes should have been higher, they didn't really feel like it at all. I never felt the danger or suspense I felt during the first part of this series. And while they are still continuing their inventions and that satisfying loop I talked about, it does feel lessened because as the inventions get more and more elaborate, they start to take a lot more shortcuts and leaps in logic. The series often did a really good job of, presenting roadblocks. Like, they make a plan and things go wrong because obviously they would. This is real life. But things become very smooth sailing at one point, where they just keep making stuff, and there's really nothing getting in their way at all, and it just isn't as interesting. It doesn't hit as good as it used to. Especially because like such a huge focus of the series was how, people disagreed with each other. They had differing points of view. So now when you have all these other people in working on these projects, the fact that everything's going super smooth just doesn't feel right in a series like this. And yeah, it just keeps going with their adventure stuff. They keep introducing some more conflicts, and I unfortunately just did not care about a lot of what was going on here. There were still some really good moments sprinkled throughout the second half, but in my opinion, they just did not come close to what the series used to be. It felt like they really played all their best cards early and were sort of running on fumes by the end. Oh boy, that ending. So they, to say that they accelerate towards the ending is quite an understatement. These last 20 chapters are so rushed, it is almost comical. It feels like this last arc could have taken 100 chapters because they squeeze so much shit into these chapters. It's like ideas that they always had planned to do. I don't know if they planned to make this series longer at some point, but they just cram so much nonsense in here. And not only does it make the series exhausting, but confusing as well, because like I mentioned earlier, as their inventions become more elaborate, I really think they needed more time spent on them. But in this arc, they're just like, okay, here's this, here's this, here's this, and you're like, whoa, chill the fuck out. And then it all culminates with them, doing their big final project and figuring out the truth about everything, about the petrification, about all that shit. And it kind of baffled me. While the series had become pretty uninteresting to me, I still expected a clever twist, like a big thing behind it that would make you go, oh shit, that's really cool. Because Dr. Stone had done that many times in the past. But no, not here. They, it felt super anticlimactic, and the way they resolve this conflict was just so lame, man. It was so lame. It really felt like a cop-out and was a super disappointing way to end the series. However, there's still one more chapter, this epilogue, that I think needed to be at least twice as long to actually explain what the fuck was going on. Because to me, it gave me the impression that they were actually going to undo pretty much everything the series had been building up at this point, and the characters don't seem to acknowledge the potential consequences of that. And to me, that just seems completely insane. And it's possible that these things aren't the case. It's just that it wasn't explained well enough. So it just left me feeling very confused. Man, I hate how common it is for Shonen Jump series to sort of fizzle out near the end. But unfortunately, this is another one where the ending was a pretty big miss for me. So now let's talk about our cast of characters. Senku first up. He's a fun guy, man. Honestly, he's not a very serious character, not even a really, standard main character you would get. He doesn't really go through much development or have many arcs. He's just always a super smart science boy. That's pretty much all he ever is, so, I don't think he's one of the most in-depth, well-written characters of all time. He's undeniably very fun to watch. Seeing him just teach all of these dumbasses about how to make bread and how to make radios out of bamboo and charcoal. He's all around just a really fun main character. Now, Taiju, who I mentioned, and he was important at the start of the series, you would think he would have a bigger role, but he really doesn't. In fact, it almost seemed like he was being built up as the main character in the first few chapters, but I think what happened was Senku was polling a lot higher, so they kind of just sidelined him, which does feel weird, but it's not the end of the world. Tsukasa, a fantastic character, definitely my favorite. His whole conflict with Senku really holds the series together in its first half, and I pretty much enjoyed all of the moments with him. The village that Senku comes across also has a ton of colorful characters. Of course, I mentioned Chrome. Growing up in a very primitive world, he is of course not nearly as experienced as Senku, and so it is really interesting seeing him grow throughout the series as he learns more about science and becomes a better scientist because of it. Kohaku was a fun character, kind of like, you know, your main heroine of the series. She was more of a warrior type, so she was a nice contrast to Senku and Chrome. Suika, a little girl in the village, actually has a huge role to play in the series, and I really, really liked it. Like, pretty much all throughout the series, I thought her story might have been the most consistent thing about it. So overall, I really enjoyed the cast of Dr. Stone. Even when the story wasn't as interesting, I enjoyed, you know, just hanging out with these characters and seeing them come up with crazy shit. The only characters I have to say I don't really like are pretty much all of the villains they introduce after Tsukasa. Like fucking Dr. Zeno, Stanley Snyder. Are you fucking kidding? I fucking hated this man. Stanley Snyder. That sounds like if J.K. Rowling had to come up with an American name. Yeah, they didn't really help the series out as the conflicts became more uninteresting. I just didn't really care about these dudes at all. But yeah, overall not too shabby. I'm probably never going to forget these cast of characters. So yeah, good for them. The catchphrases though. Holy fucking... oh my god. Catchphrases are cool. They're cute and quirky. Believe it. But Inagaki, you gotta fucking chill, man. Okay? Okay? Senku saying something is 10 billion% accurate every fucking chapter gets a bit grating after a while. As well as Chrome calling things bad. Again, another character who joins them on most of their journey has two little quirks. He calls everyone dear Senku, dear Chrome, dear Suika. What? And also, Pig Latin. The man loves Pig Latin. Why the fuck is this a thing? No one speaks in Pig Latin. It gets very grating and annoying. It's not a huge flaw, not the end of the world. But yeah, man, not something I was a huge fan of. So Boichi's art. This guy, he was a veteran going in. I mean, both of these creators were. And it shows because his art for weekly manga is pretty fucking incredible. I think his characters are super well drawn. They're very expressive. Just everything has this volume and detail and depth to it that you don't often see from Shonen Jump. This stone world he's created is very vibrant and very interesting. We get to see a lot of locations we may have been familiar with, but you know what 3,700 years without humans has done to them. The way he breaks down all of these inventions into their components is really cool. The action, while this isn't much of an action series, when it does show up, it's also great. The only really complaint I have is unfortunately his female character designs. Now, some of these are fine, but a lot of them look kinda weird. My friend Taz once described Boichi's female characters as the sloth from Ice Age, so make of that what you will. And they kind of have the same problem One Piece has, where most of the female characters have the same body type, which is just weird. And so yeah, I'm not like the biggest fan of this style ever, but he's undeniably super skilled, and I'm really excited to see what he decides to do next. Hopefully he pairs up with another writer, because I have heard that when he is doing the writing, it's a bit questionable. So yeah, those were my thoughts on Dr. Stone. Oh man, it was so good. So, chef's kiss, man. But it unfortunately just did the thing. It did the thing where it just lost a lot of steam, I lost a lot of interest, and it really fell flat for me in the end. So while overall I still think I would recommend Dr. Stone, I would warn people going in that, you know, it peaks pretty early. 6 out of 10. If you're interested in checking this out for yourself, Viz has been releasing all of the volumes in English. I think it'll be 26 when it's all over, so yeah, there's that. And if you have a Shonen Jump subscription, you can read the full series there. There is an anime with 2 seasons out, a third one coming. So far, it's pretty much adapted all of the best parts in the series, in my opinion. However, I would definitely still recommend the manga over it. While the anime is fine, it leaves a lot to be desired in the animation department. And for alternate recommendations, Watamote. Don't ask me why, just read it, you bitch. Alright, there we go. Leave your thoughts on Dr. Stone in the comments down below. Gonna be a new podcast at some point. It's... We want to do something special for 50 episodes, but it's really hard to just organize a huge group of people together to do it. But we'll do it. I have a subscriber milestone to do that might still be a while because it's going to be a long one. And I will, of course, keep cranking out the reviews. The next one, what could it be?
And still it's all a speck amid 100 billion stars in a galaxy we call the Milky Way. It's 60,000 trillion miles from one end to the other, and still that's just a fraction of the way. 'Cause there's 100 billion galaxies that stretch across the sky, filled with constellations, planets, moons, and stars. And still the universe extends to a place that